Welcome to Beyond the Balance Sheet. This is where inspiring stories meet thoughtful financial insight. I'm your host, Aaron Carreno, and alongside me here is Nathan Plum from Wisconsin Capital Management. Glad to have you with us today, of course.
Very happy to be here. I'm very excited. This is our first podcast.
Yeah, really exciting. We're going to be talking with some really influential people, some really inspirational people. And speaking of inspiration, Alison, you're with us here today for our first ever episode. You're the founder of AK Counseling. And this episode in particular is a unique approach into career shifts and career changes. So let's start with, one, welcome. Glad to have you with us here today. But let's start a little bit about your journey. We're going to talk about some of the risks you took. You started in media sales, and that's where we met. And so what got you into that business first and foremost?
So I knew since high school that I wanted to be a therapist. So I got my undergraduate degree from UW-Madison psychology. That was a 5.5-year plan for me. So I wanted a break from school. Secondary interest was advertising sales. So I pursued that and really enjoyed it for 8 years. I worked with a lot of different personality types and industries and earned trust with a lot of different personality types. And that served me well in my secondary career. So after 8 years, I felt like it was time to go back to school and invest in the primary career that I wanted to pursue. So a good friend of mine knew my dreams, and she encouraged me, why wait? There's never going to be the perfect time, so to say. And so why not now? So I ended my full-time career in advertising sales, ironically filed for divorce, moved across town, started the full-time program, a master's program at the UW, applied for student loans.
There's never a perfect time to start a new career, right? So you make this decision. Some people have it all laid out. It's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be this. But then your life also, your personal life, clearly things were happening simultaneously. How do you manage to get through that as you're looking towards the end goals?
I think there just was not a question for me that becoming a therapist was most important, and making arrangements for that to happen in a very authentic way was important. And being honest that my marriage was not working was an important piece of that. It was not only a lot of transitions at the same time, but I've always been very financially responsible, paying off credit cards in full every month, never in debt. So all of these changes all at once and taking out student loans felt overwhelming. When I graduated, it was important for me to set financial goals to recover as quickly as possible. So number one priority was paying off the student loans because the interest is brutal. And then the next goal was having a nicer apartment. I was in the student housing area of town. And so the upgrade was lovely. And then the next goal was a luxury SUV. And so I saved for that, paid for that outright. So no loans there. And then it was time to save for a home. And so that took a year and a half or so, I would say.
Your first career, back to that first segment, you're working in a sales job, which I assume is about 100% commission or close to 100% commission. How do you deal with that kind of uncertainty of your income? How do you plan that income? Because what did you learn from that variability of income?
That's a good question. It was not easy. The first year was tough. I was barely making a livable wage. In fact, I called my parents crying and I said, please help. I cannot do this. And my parents have always been very supportive. So I was expecting a little cash to come my way. And my dad said, I know that this is really hard for you. And Mom and I are confident that you can do this. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. And that's really exactly what I needed. somebody to believe in me and to back, some confidence. And yeah, year 2 was better, a little more comfortable. And then year 3, I would say it was, really solid and competent and riding those waves, whether it's seasonally or monthly, the ups and downs just was the new norm. And I got really comfortable with that.
Yeah, so that's really an amazing insight. So she had a variability of income. There's a lot of intestinal fortitude that kind of comes with some of that position. But when you ultimately becoming a business owner, having that kind of not having the psychological ups and downs with variable of income is very, very important, because with any business, you're going to go through good times, you're going to go through bad times. And I don't know, I'm just feeling that you kind of learned your, financial fortitude or helped reinforce an existing trait in that, do you think that would be correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also diversifying, investments. And so it doesn't feel like I'm 100% reliant on this income that's up and down. I also have investments and stocks and things to kind of level out, feel comfortable.
Alison, because you were used to working on 100% commission, and media sales, as we know, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And you mentioned riding the highs and the lows, but how has your experience in media and doing media sales shaped how you run your business?
Learning to work with a lot of different personality types was very, very helpful. Earning trust, helping people get comfortable. All of that was really good practice for running a therapy business. And because obviously I work with a lot of different clientele. Working with couples is my specialty, but also I work with individuals on life transitions, or depression, anxiety, and sometimes a partner is therapy resistant. So I'll work with just one partner to improve the relationship.
So, Alison, I imagine there are a lot of these, but what's one critical component that you need to know, or at least you need to learn or have, to running a successful business?
So, of course, you want to be skilled clinically, right? That's the meat of the business. But to run a successful business, you can't do all the things to a professional level. So hiring out taxes. I have a tax accountant that's been a lifesaver. That was a starting point. And then looking at financial advisors for wealth management, really important. When you start earning to a certain degree, you don't know where to put the money to make it really work for you. And that's why you turn to Nate and say, I'm not a professional at this. You are. Please help.
Kind of like why we have a fitness coach to work on our fitness goals. We do the same financially. Is that right, Nate?
Yeah, I think as a business owner, so you kind of have that mentality that I can do everything myself and I can carry the yoke and every burden. But it is important to delegate. So as you said, having a good accountant. So for you out there that are 1099 workers, even an accountant might feel expensive. Usually the money that you pay for accountant will probably end up in tax savings for you. So you don't have to go that road alone. So, life, you have to have a good accountant, have a good lawyer, have a good doctor, and, hopefully you set yourself for success. So don't try to do everything by yourself, and make sure that you delegate to experts that you feel comfortable with. So as a business owner, you have to set up your own retirement plan, correct?
Yes. So I had a SEP IRA.
Yeah. So SEP IRA is a self-employment IRA. So the SEP is the SEP is the jargon. Mm-hmm. So the accountant usually tells you how much you put in each year, and it functions kind of like a 401k. So I think a lot of people that don't have a 401k or something set up by a company set up for you, it's easy to forget that part of the process. So if you're, if you're door dashing, or if you're doing finance or psychology, and have your own business, you make sure that you set up that saving for yourself, because you're setting yourself up for long-term success.
And is SEP, Nathan, different than a simple IRA, or is that just based on how many employees you have as a small business owner?
Yeah, a SIP IRA is usually when you're just a solo practitioner. A simple IRA is a little bit easier when you have some multiple employees, but you don't want to pay the additional costs for a 401k plan. A 401k plan can get rather expensive to administer, so you have to hire a TPA, a third-party administrator. And for small business, that's a pretty high bar. So if you wanted to start just by yourself, I would start with the SEP. If you had a few employees that wanted to start something for them, I would look into the simple IRA. And then hopefully if you have over, 100 employees, or depending if you have a lot of people that demand for a 401k plan from your employees, then you can hit that next level. So that would be my stepstone advice right there.
That makes sense.
So 2 years ago, I started a solo 401k.
Yep.
So I don't know what the threshold is
Mm-hmm.
to start that.
Yeah, so there's usually, again, the accountant will kind of steer you the right direction. So you're like, based on my income and the type of business are, sometimes a SEP, sometimes a solo 401k. So again, that's a specific needs question. So it's kind of say, oh, you should do this, and then kind of universally. Yeah, as you know, everyone's different. Everyone's a little bit different situation. And again, getting an expert that knows the exact need for you as well. So there's no universal constants in finance. So that's why you really have to have a financial advisor that really listens. So make sure they're actually listening to you and just not talking to you and just trying to sell you something. And, just get your needs taken care of, because everyone's different, everyone's unique, everyone's bespoke, and find the professionals that can help you in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody who's listening right now, and maybe they're in a stable job, but they're thinking about making that pull towards something different, regardless of your age and how much experience you have, what would you say to that?
I would say don't wait. It's never going to feel like the perfect time. But go in with some sort of plan and believe in yourself. Trust yourself that you have the drive, the ambition, resilience to see it through.
Nathan, what financial advice would you have for Alison?
Actually, it's interesting with our two fields. You think finance and, psychology and therapy don't cross, but they actually intermingle a lot. So we are both our professions. I assume that we have to have difficult conversations, right? So one is kind of like, do you have the communication skills? Like, can you go through it? Like, everyone knows they need to look at the financials, but they're like, yeah, I feel vulnerable. I feel stress. I feel that. And I'm sure that, and then communication, right? So I don't want to tell my partner, I don't want to feel that way. So like, is there a step that you kind of learned that we both have uncomfortable conversations, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
There's a way, like, besides hiring a professional like you, is there a way to kind of like create a setting where, like a safe setting where you can, talk about that? Or what are some things that, when you need to have a difficult conversation, what are the things that you could give some insight?
Well, Nate, I would say call AK Counseling.
That's a brilliant idea. Yeah.
No, I do work with a lot of couples. So the top 3 reasons for divorce are sex, money, and kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I do talk with couples a lot about finances.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the hot topics for most couples,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them the skills and tools to better listen to each other and what the needs and wants are, and making those distinctions between needs and wants, where can you flex? And ultimately, they are able to use those skills and tools on their own and have these conversations successfully in their home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fun to see.
Essentially, when you're working about what finances, usually especially when you have a couple and you're working on together, right? Usually people have a different experience, a baseline with their finances, a different comfort. We kind of joke about one person's the saver and one person's the spender.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you try to reframe in a way that doesn't make the other feel like they're getting attacked, or just to really kind of hopefully form a good consensus?
Mm-hmm. I try to explain it as how they're complementary to one another. If you have 2 spenders, that's not good. And drive you into debt, right? And if you have 2 savers, maybe you're not enjoying life very much. So to have that yin and yang, or that balance, it's actually a really good fit.
Mhm. And then when you were telling your story previously, one thing that really kind of hit home for me is that you had goals that were coming in. And then obviously financial goals are very important for goal setting. So for you personally, like I want to pay off these student loans ASAP, right? I feel really uncomfortable with debt. I want to have my own practice, and I want to have something kind of fun. Like I want to have a luxury SUV. So, in financiers goal setting, is that something that, how would a listener with you, if they want to have a conversation over dinner, what's like one thing that you would kind of facilitate there?
I think being clear on your values. My number one value is freedom. And so that means work-life balance, doing the things that I love, like traveling and driving a luxury SUV. And, to have freedom, you need financial stability. And I learned that from a young age, and it's paid on, be a good saver, but also feel like you deserve to spend and enjoy. It's a balance that's deserves ongoing attention.
This probably sounds obvious, but I mean, I imagine when you look back at all the different obstacles that you faced and the hurdles that you accomplished, how rewarding it was. And you look back and you say, I can do this, right? And someone listening right now, when you're looking, and the light isn't quite at the end of the tunnel, you just continue forward and focus on what your plan is. I can imagine that's pretty rewarding.
Mm-hmm. I remember going to a networking event, and I was in year 2 of my practice. And so this was a networking event with coaches, therapists specifically. And I talked with the woman who hosted the event, and she was a coach. And I said, so you've talked about your success. When did you feel really confident and stable in your practice? And she said, if you can make it through year 3, you're good. And I thought, wow, I'm at 2.5 years. If I can make it another 6 months, I'll be golden. And she was right.
And how many years are you at now?
13.
13 years. Congratulations.
13.
That's amazing. Alison, we appreciate you sharing your story with us today. Really inspiring and learning some things about you as, you've continued in your career, and just really appreciate you being here and being vulnerable with us about navigating change.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, just to kind of, I'm a mountain climber, so it's interesting that she had her view of the summit, right? And she had her base camp, and she was ready to go. And the story didn't happen. It didn't happen exactly that it happened. There was, switchbacks, there were hardships, there was things that she probably couldn't expect in her life. And then, but she still kept her eyes on the summit. And hopefully we do the same thing here in a financial point of view.
Well, thank you for listening to the Beyond the Balance Sheet podcast, and for watching it as well. And if today's conversation resonated with you, and you feel inspired even, then why don't you let us know? If you want to be a guest on the show, or someone who would make a great guest on the show, just like Alison, then connect with us at wiscap.com. It's WISCAP.com, wiscap.com. Send us a message, because here at Wisconsin Capital Management, we believe your financial plan should support your life and not limit it, right? Did I get that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Invest for the future.
Thank you so much. Until next time.